A responsible business is one that is concerned about the welfare of its stakeholders and makes sure that it does create a positive impact and sustain good relations. This way, a business can take decisions that brings a positive change in the workforce as well as the society. In addition, a responsible business must also make strong bonds with all its stakeholders. These include consumers, employees, investors, and its society in which it operates. Being a socially responsible business helps the firm to strengthen its relationships with its society and creates a good image in the eyes of people. It also helps in improving the qualities of the employees and boosts their morale. Employees can work more productively and thus harvesting more profits. Being a responsible business also means to promote sustainability. This way, a business can improve its project outcomes whilst lowering its costs, coming up with brilliant innovative ideas, as well as being eco-friendly. As businesses prosper in the light of social responsibility, some of the firms may just consider the benefits of itself rather than being concerned about its stakeholders. Businesses, in order to lower their costs, start practicing unethical means of trade that eventually affects its stakeholders and may also lead to closure of the business in the long run. Having said that, the ethical problem area which will be focused here is workplace harassment and discrimination. Many big firms and organizations have to face these problems in its workplace, as people from different countries and from different religions and more of such differences gather under one roof to work for their living. One might want his or her promotion, or one is just jealous of his or her colleague, are a few reasons of harassment and discrimination. Harassments are of different kinds. A few examples are discriminatory harassment that are based on caste, creed, religion, color, etc. Personal, sexual, psychological harassment, cyberbullying, and the list goes on. However, there are many businesses that do not consider all these factors while operating in the market. One such corporation, which will be further scrutinized here, is Nike, formerly known as Blue Ribbon Sports, an American sportswear company headquartered in Beaverton, founded in 1964 by a track and field coach Bill Bowerman and his student Phil Knight. They had opened their first retail outlet in 1966 and launched their first Nike brand shoe in 1972. Later on, the company was renamed as Nike Incorporation in 1978 and went public within the next 2 years. Nike grew enormously, and by the early 21st century, it had its retail outlets and distributors in around 170 countries. The famous curved checkmark logo, the swoosh, was then recognized by the world. Thanks to the athletes Michael Jordan, Mia Hamm, Roger Federer, and Tiger Woods, who Nike owes for its success due to their huge endorsements with the company. Although Nike is recognized as a seemingly successful corporation with a turnover of more than $40 billion, there is more to the story. During the 1970s, Nike had its countries of production in mainland China, South Korea, and Taiwan. As these countries started growing economically, the factory workers started resigning from their jobs and started looking for high-paying jobs in those countries. As Nike faced this issue, it started placing their production factories in developing countries such as India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and more of their kinds. According to a report published by Jeffrey Bellinger, an American labor organizer and writer, Nike was found involved in unethical labor practices which involved paying the workers a seemingly low wage of about $1.25 per day. practicing child labor, unhygienic working and living conditions for the workers, excessive working hours, and negligence of labor rights. Here is a short clip of Jim Keddy and Leslie Kretzu, who have been to Tangerang, Indonesia, and lived undercover for a month with the laborers working in Nike sweatshops.
We would go to different workers' homes. You got like 4 women sleeping in an 8x8 cement box, and all their possessions are in there, like everything, in this small area.
The workers would have to share a bathroom with 5 to 10 other families. The workers would have to share living quarters, actually like a row of shacks with corrugated tin roofs. All of those families would share a laundry corner and a kitchen facility, and they would all share the same well to take the water out of.
$1.25 a day after you've paid for your rent, water, electricity, any major transportation costs, you're going to be left on average with roughly 7,000 rupiah per day.
A similar issue was investigated in Malaysia, where human trafficking had taken place and workers were to live in cramped up and unhygienic conditions.
A contractor making clothes for sportswear giant Nike has been caught using forced labour in Malaysia. An undercover investigation by 7 News discovered factory workers being paid a pittance and forced to live in squalor, while Nike stars earn a fortune.
It's no great secret that designer sportswear is made in remote factories by poorly paid workers. But what's going on here in Malaysia is something altogether more sinister. It's human trafficking on a massive scale.
We're led down a filthy corridor, past people sleeping, people eating. They're crammed like cattle, 26 men per room. A staggering 350 Bangladeshi workers live in this one tin shed.
They have no way of escape. So that is absolutely forced labour.
After knowing the dark side of Nike, consumers reacted negatively to the breaking news of Nike using sweatshops. Nike's stock prices dropped from $38 per share to $19 a share in 1997. The public started revolting. There were several protests held against the company, and people started boycotting all Nike's products, resulting in a drastic decline for demand. It was high time for Nike to bring a change. The change began to rise when former CEO Phil Knight stated in his speech regarding the issue, "The Nike product has become synonymous with slave wages, forced overtime, and arbitrary use. I truly believe the American consumer doesn't want to buy products made under abusive conditions." In 1999, Nike successfully creates a Fair Labor Association, a non-profit group where labor and human rights representatives and other companies gather to establish an independent monetary system and a code of conduct that includes a minimum wage and a 60-hour work week. During 2002 to 2004, the company performs around 600 audits that includes regular visiting to production factories where problems arise. In the year 2005, Nike becomes the first company in its industry to publish a list of all the factories it has signed contracts with. During the same year, Nike publishes a report of 108 pages that states the current conditions and the wages in its factories, also addressing the widespread issues in its factories.
Hundreds of workers making clothes for a Nike contractor in Malaysia have been freed from squalid living conditions and moved to much better accommodation after 7 News uncovered the scandal. The exposure forced the sportswear giant to order a fair deal for the workers, which will cost millions.
It's the house-proud grin of a young man in his new home.
I happy, all men happy. No.
They've now been moved from this
30%, 50%, how can shower, how can wash.
to apartments like this.
Doing okay, good. Toilet okay. Water I have.
It will cost bosses millions. The impact on these workers, priceless. Mike Duffy, 7 News.
Furthermore, Nike has also worked upon promoting worker management dialogue, directly intervening to protect worker rights, setting industry-leading compliance standards, forbidding the use of child labor, promoting workers' freedom of association, and much more. As Nike faced a lot of criticism in the past few decades, it isn't the only company to be involved in such a scandal. Yet it was the company whose practices were recognized by the public. Companies that are still involved in such practices must acknowledge the allegations that Nike went through and what all steps it had to take to recreate a better image in the eyes of people, and must consider all those factors that Nike failed to do so in order to sustain their dignity.